Right, my name is Rich Schmidt, here with Earl Cramer Brown. We're at Nicholson Library at Linfield University. It's January 19th, 2021. Earl, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
First question for you, why wine?
Why wine? It's not a straight path for anybody, I don't think, unless they're born into it, which, we have a few generations of that going on now in America. But my family purchased a business in Dundee in 85, 86, and I came to work for them in the area in 87. And just kind of by osmosis, hey, it's wine country. And their business, my mom would cook meals for lunches for Dickie, Rath, Ponzi, Lett, the pioneers. So I met those guys when I was, around 19. I didn't really care about wine, but, just kind of being around them. And then kind of fast forward to a few years later when I got married to my wife, Joanne. She started working at a winery as a hobby job. And they asked me to help on occasion, very few occasions. And so I would go up there and help, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And so we would get our little discount on the wine, and kind of, it was fun, nice social thing, and for weekends. And kind of fast forward where there was a manager, Steve Lutz, who owns Linné Winery, but he came on at Chateau Benoit, which changed to Onamy, which is the winery we were working at part-time. And he started holding these staff meetings, which were fantastic. We all look forward to them because there was great food and wine and banter. But he started having us do blind tastings of different varietals from all over the world. So we would expand our wine knowledge. And it's the first manager that had kind of done that for us. And after a couple of those tastings, we would do Merlot, we would do Pinot Noir, but from all over the world. It kind of clicked with me, like, wow, there's something to this. I really like this. I really am enjoying these wines, and the stories and where they're from, and you can kind of travel through through wine. And so fast forward a little bit more forward, my folks sold their properties, and I needed to get a job outside of the family business. And I had done production and in the tasting rooms and off-site events and things like that, and really enjoyed it. But what I really liked was selling. So I decided I would pursue a sales job with an Oregon winery. And so I started applying for openings, and I received quite a few interviews, but they always told me I was second. I know I was like fifth or sixth, but they always said I was maybe second or something like that. But I didn't have any distribution experience, so it was a learning curve there, and a little bit of frustration. But I got online. I spoke to my wife and said, I really want to do this. So what if we have to move? And she goes, it's fine, I'm in insurance, I can move. And so we got on the internet and got on wine jobs and started applying kind of all over the country, and for jobs at distributors or wineries or whatever we could. And so I received an offer from an Italian wine import company out of New York to handle the Oregon market, or to join the Oregon market. Not at that time, I didn't handle it. I said to the owner, I said, well, I don't know anything about Italian wine. And he says, well, you know wine and you're really interested in it, so we can get you up to speed, So that was 2005. That was my first job in the distribution side, import side. And that enabled me. It was boot camp for wine sales. It kind of, thrust me into wines that I didn't know in a region that is, considered very difficult to most everybody and to myself, but I was able to immerse myself in that country for, that job was 3 years, and I was in the Oregon market, and I ended up being the manager and doing quite well, and I really loved it. I really felt like I found something that I really wanted to do, because it was interesting. You're going to all sorts of you're going to stores and to wine shops and to restaurants, and you're meeting all sorts of really interesting people, and people that are happy to see you and people that aren't happy to see you, and you really have to kind of morph into what you need to for the market. So my first year, I wanted to say that I made a lot of money, $11,000. So you really had to love it, and you really had to have an understanding spouse. But second year did pretty well, and third year did really well. Parted ways with that company, and ended up working for a locally owned distribution and import company out of Portland, who then specialized really in French wines and some Portuguese wines, a little bit of Spanish wines. But not too much on the domestic side again, which I kind of knew anyway. So, I was able to travel to Italy, I was able to travel to Portugal, I was able to travel to France, through these companies. And to me, that is still the best education for me, to see it, to talk to the people. To sell wine, you need to have passion for the product that you're selling. So that means meeting the family, meeting learning the history. Really, something that resonates with me is that, I'm supporting families all over the world and in my local area with the imports. And then we also do have quite a few domestic wines as well, and local wines as well. But so that was my first 2 forays into working in the industry, and but I was pretty frustrated because just like anybody else, I can do it better. So I was working in Eugene a lot, and I met a colleague down there, and he stayed 1 to 2 nights a week in Eugene, and I stayed 1 to 2 nights a week in Eugene, and we both had families, and so he was pretty much the only competitor that I would hang out with. So we would go to dinner after working all day and commiserate and help each other out and all that. And then he said his company that he was working for was going out of business, and that he was going to start his own. And I said, well, nobody knows this, but I'm going to start my own as well. But I don't really want a partner or anything. And he goes, well, I don't want a partner. And I'm like, we should be partners then, because we're not looking for a partner. And so we did. So I gave like a 5 months notice, and we started the paperwork in 2011 and started Vertical Wine and Beer Company, which we wanted to locate here in McMinnville. Lots of everybody else kind of locates in Portland, but I'd spent years driving to Portland to get wine out of a warehouse and things like that, and I decided, the reps in Portland can drive down here, and which they don't have to very often. But so here we are, going on 9 years later. Vertical Wine and Beer, we have quite a few employees and doing pretty well.
Excellent. We'll come back to that, but I got a few questions about the process along the way.
Sure.
You mentioned boot camp for wine sales.
Yeah.
What were some of the most important things you learned or had to learn in that process of selling wine? What was unique about selling wine, and what did you not know that you needed to know?
Well, I didn't really know much about the process of what goes on in the chain stores, the retail end, where things are a lot of paperwork. Everything has to be improved. You have to have a very large insurance policy. A lot of the things that I just had not known about. And I thought you just walk in and show them some wines, and they like it and they buy it, and then they keep buying it. But you need to build relationships. There's a lot of great, competitors out there, great sales reps, great companies, a lot of great wine out there. Why should they buy from you? So trying to figure out, a way to be, I guess, pertinent to them, to be where they're going to look to you. So you can tell when you have a good relationship built when they start, the customer starts calling you when they need something versus you having to always, call them. And also how hard it was, and to you have to have some determination. I called a friend one time on my way home from a full day, and he goes, "Well, how much wine did you sell today?" And I said, "I didn't sell anything." And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm going home. I've had it, And he said, "You can't go home and tell your wife you didn't sell any wine. Stop at some more accounts." And it's about 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'm really tired. So I stopped at Nick's on my way home here. And Jonathan was the buyer then, and Nick was there. And I ended up selling them quite a bit of wine. And it was about 9 o'clock when that happened. And so, another thing I learned is just don't pigeonhole yourself into times. You're not working 9 to 5. You're working weekends. You're working, all the time. So you have to really love it because you're living it. But it's a life that you're not, ever going to get super rich at. But it is really a rich life. I mean, the travel and the people and the food and the learning the wines all the time, and kind of empowering your customer to teach you about the wines you don't know. I mean, don't ever go in there like more than your customer does, because they taste wine all day long with a lot of people. They're the experts. You're just there to facilitate some goods and services for them. So that was, all that was just very interesting to learn. And, I grew up in the golf business, so it was all public oriented. And so I'm able to talk to people pretty easily. So that really helps, because it is still nerve-wracking when you want to go into a new account and you don't know anybody. And, you feel foolish a lot. And you have to, feel foolish for a while. Like you're trying to find the buyer, and people they don't want to, there's 50, I don't know how many exactly anymore, but I'd say over 50 distributors, plus all the wineries in Oregon, trying to get that space. So.
You mentioned Italy as being notoriously difficult. What about Italy was difficult from your perspective, and how did you kind of overcome it? How did you learn the region well enough to sell it like you needed to?
Well, the immersion, helped, and I was able to travel through the importers. I'm trying to remember how many. I think I've been to Italy 11 times. Different regions. So what's notoriously difficult about it is all the different varietals. You're basically going from the Alps to Africa. You basically are doing California with bodies of water on each side, so you have marine influences on, both sides. So all these little microclimates, all these different varietals, all these different cultures all the way up and down. From the north of Piedmont to down into Sicily. So they're completely different. They're Italians, but they're completely different cultures. And the thing about wine in Italy specifically, but other regions as well, is What's interesting about it is you're never going to master it. You know, these master somms, they've mastered it. But there's very few people in the world that are going to master it. And that's what keeps it interesting and fun. And I learn something new varietals, I'd say every day, you know, if not every week. I learn something new. If I'm looking around, which I generally am because, you know, I am in charge of bringing in most of the wines for our portfolio.
You talked a couple times about sort of the passion needed to sell wine. What's, in your experience, I know most of your experience now is in selling wine, but what's different about selling wine than selling something else? Why does it need the passion to sell it? What's different about it from your perspective? Why do you have to sell the story so hard? Why do people care about the story more than the product when you're selling?
Well, I mean, if I'm in front of a customer and they're, you know, like a chemistry major, they're going to want to know the technical details of the wine. But that's very far and few in between. Most of the people are going to, you know, it's going to resonate with them when you're talking about a story about the area and the family and something that people can relate to. And, you know, I think in America, and we're very fortunate in Oregon to have such a great wine culture and food culture because they go together. And in other parts of the world, wine is not, you know, really an alcoholic beverage. It's a part of the culture and it's food. And, you know, they have a little bit of wine every day. You know, there's not this binge sort of mentality that we've had in America. But it's really changing. And you know, I just feel very fortunate to be able to sell in Oregon because I travel on other parts of the U.S. for tastings and things like that. And you know, even the West Coast is very, very cultured, and the East Coast is as well. But some parts of the, you know, the middle country, if it's not Cab or Chardonnay or something, you know, kind of common, they don't really think about it. You know, if we have a tasting here, hopefully again after the COVID's over. When you do tastings and you do like strange varietals like Pelavegra or Fresia or some sort of variety like that, in Oregon it seems to engage people and they want to come check it out. You know, they want to find out what it is. In you know, other parts of the country, like, nah, I don't know what that is. You know, so I just feel that the passion, especially in Oregon, and a lot of very well traveled. You know, we have a lot of people in the wine industry, obviously here, and food industry, hopefully again. And so the story, like I said earlier, resonates with them. Yeah, they want a connection, and it's really fun to bring winemakers and owners from all over the world. We've had people from South Africa, from South America, from all over the world, and you know, bring them into Oregon, and they make a connection with the buyers, and it's pretty interesting to see people become friends from all over the world. And you know, I always wanted to do a follow that bottle kind of a documentary, to where it goes from the people that are actually making the bottle in another country, doing the vineyard work, that family, and kind of all the way to where it's, you know, the dock workers, like how much money a bottle of wine economically stimulates the economy. And locally too, I've been trying to set up some export. I've got some people in Italy interested in some Oregon wines, but there's been some difficult times with lately the tariffs, so they're all mad at us, and also with COVID, and it just wasn't the right time, and so you know, that's just something I'm still going to be working on, because they're interested in Oregon wines in Italy, in France. You know, I have people from Alsace come visit, and we'll share some wines at a local restaurant, and they'll take them home and they'll use them in their judging their Pinot Noir. So, and with the International Pinot Noir Festival here, obviously, but they're they love coming to Oregon. So.
It's amazing to think of Italy and France being interested in Oregon wines. That's just an amazing statement.
Well, there's such great quality here now. I mean, back in the 80s, there was a lot of hobbyists and a lot of people really discovering on how to handle the Pinot Noir grape, how to handle their vineyards, and there's just a lot of super qualified people now, and the wines are just fantastic in Oregon.
So tell me the difference for you in your kind of experience. Obviously, you mentioned all the different kind of people you interact with. You interact with retail and with restaurant and with chain. And tell me about the kind of differences for you in selling to the different kinds of outlets. What are customers looking for different things on the other end? Are you having to sell a different story? What's the kind of differences for you as you prepare to go into a restaurant versus a chain store versus a wine shop versus et cetera?
So Verticals kind of specializes in independence. We're not in all the chain stores. We're not in any chain restaurants, which is another great thing about Oregon, is that we really have a huge independent restaurant industry here. Lately, since it's mainly retail, we've had to, kind of change gears and bring in a few products that I normally wouldn't bring in, but they're working, and, so for me personally, I love opening new accounts. I love restaurants. I love meeting people and finding out, what their passion is, what they're doing, why, if I walk into a place and I see a huge, corporate truck parked out front and a wine list that has been curated by a large distributor, it's probably not the place, for me. Maybe. I'll still try, but it's probably not, a place that I'm going to connect with. And so when you connect with an account, you consider yourself allies with them, to where, as you might see, I'm promoting local restaurants and independent restaurants and people that support us. It's a symbiotic relationship, really. It's not just the sale. It's promoting that place. It's very simple. As if they're successful, you're successful. So you can. People can make money and do things correctly and support each other long term. More of the European model, and what's becoming now the American model too. I think in Oregon. So.
When you started Vertical, obviously you had experience, and your partner had experience. So tell me what you wanted to do. I mean, you've described a little bit of sort of Vertical's ethos so far, but tell us what you wanted to do with Vertical, what your kind of goal was when you set it up, and what kind of lessons you had learned that were either things you definitely wanted to do or definitely wanted to not do with Vertical as you were starting it up.
So I'd say that Vertical was born out of two sales reps' frustration of management, and you hear this a lot in a lot of different industries as well. So that it's pretty simplistic, but that really was the basis for us wanting to do that. We had kids and mortgages and needed to make a living, and you were under the and it was. As a sales rep, there's different structures, and I've always been 100% commission. And now that I own my own business, I'm really under commission. But my business partner and I were under commission. And so what we need is consistency in products to sell. So you work really hard to get a wine in by the glass at a restaurant, which, like I said, there's 4 or 5 of them, and there's a lot of people wanting those. So you finally, get wine by the glass, and your manager up above decides, we're not going to work with that wine anymore. We're not going to work with that wine for whatever reason, So, we just both felt like we're working for different companies, but we felt, we were going uphill a lot. So what we wanted to do is, create a company to where we would be respectful of that sort of work that our sales reps did. We can only do what we can do, but to try and be respectful of their hard work and keep things as consistently as possible and communicate and tell them the reason why things were or weren't going to be in stock. So, it was really just born out of frustration, and we wanted to create jobs, and I joke like the best thing about the business is creating jobs, and what's the worst thing? Well, employees. But during this whole, I know you're going to ask about COVID later, but during this whole COVID thing, so we were about 40% on-premise restaurant. So we've really taken a hit and had to retool and do things, and we've done a great job. Like the staff has just done a great job. We have experienced sales reps, which really has been helpful. But we didn't lay anybody off. And I heard story after story of large corporations laying a lot of people off, and quite frankly, they can afford not to have to do that. But I get it, it's a business. But to us, it was we didn't lay anybody off, not one person. And so we're pretty proud of that. So I guess it's just a couple of sales reps wanting to stay in the business, stay what we're doing because we love it, and do it and create our own chaos, do it our own way, because it's not all cake and party hats. It's a business. There's a lot of non-fun things, which I would say would be logistics, taxes. I think the OLCC laws, the way they're written right now, are advantageous towards small corporations. And you see in other states to where there's terms, there's discounts for large buy-ins and things like that, which in Oregon, I think the playing field is set to where, I would say we were probably a medium distributor now. We're not really that small anymore, but we're not anywhere near the top guys. But they do more in a day than we do all year. But sometimes I'm a little frustrated with some of the laws, but I really think that it's set up fairly right now. So a small business like ours couldn't really make it very well in a state where it was they had three big guys, and then it's a hobby. It's not a living.
So take us through, from your perspective, sort of the distribution process, or the nuts and bolts of distribution, and how you learned it, and what, if anything, has changed in distribution since you've been a part of it. What does it look like now versus what it looked like when you started?
Well, working for a specific importer of Italy versus what I'm doing now. Is I learned that to survive you have to be diverse, you have to be able to change, whereas the company I worked for initially very rigid, with minimums and things like that. And when I started, it seemed like people were your competition, that they were respectful. Nobody tried to steal each other's brands. They were actually helpful. That's changed a lot. There's been some big companies that have come into the state, and kind of changed the landscape. There's a lot of people that, I would say maybe it's just out of desperation that instead of doing what they do and paying attention to what they do, is they see success of other companies, and they try and take that brand, and and there's just a lot of changes like that, and a lot of importers that are merging with each other, and a lot of buyouts, and that's just things that I don't really enjoy, but it's just part of the business now, and I can say that we've never tried to steal a brand from anybody. If someone's not happy with us, there's no contract. They can go wherever they want, and if they want to be with us, they come with us. And I feel like that, is the organic way to have a business and sleep at night. So, I mean, I just see the changes is that it's really competitive, and people aren't really respectful of other business. Not all, but there's just definitely a group out there that is I guess just it's big business, just so.
Has that changed for you how you approach things? I mean, you mentioned like you want to do it organically. Have you had to change because of that in any way?
We've had to maybe change our philosophy on brands that we bring in. Like I said, just because of COVID and because of the retail thing, that we've maybe brought in some brands that I wouldn't even have looked at before, and they don't really have a great story and that, but they have mass appeal. Which is okay, because as long as I'm able to keep people employed and keep things going, and we can still support those families that we want to support on the other spectrum, and can continue to do that, then it's still a greater good.
So non-COVID times, let's talk about kind of ideal situation for you here. How do you choose who you want to represent on the wine brand perspective? Who is it you're looking for, and how do you sort of approach brokering that deal?
Well, a lot of times they're coming to you. As far as the imports go, we work with importers that have brands, so we'll kind of taste through and see a gap in our portfolio to where, we don't have something from Euro, we don't have something from Alsace, or, we have one from Alsace, but we don't have anything from the north or something like that. So we'll seek that out through our current suppliers, and then also we'll have recommendations from other wineries saying, hey, you should check these guys out. So it's mainly word of mouth and a lot of hard work tasting wine, which is also pretty funny. Right now at the office, one of the reasons we're doing it here at the beautiful Linfield campus is that I have probably 78 wines on my table that I need to taste through of samples that people have sent me. And people are like, oh, that must be tough. And it's like, you sit down and judge 36 wines in a row and judge them to where, yes, I like this, but can I sell it? And if I can sell it, then who can I sell it to? Who needs this wine? Right now I'm trying some Australian wines. It's been a while. I used to, 2007, 2008, we had an Australian wine that we couldn't keep in stock. And the kangaroo came along and, kind of hurt the Australian wine industry. It helped it, but it hurt it, because there's a lot of really great small producers in that country. So right now, that's the thing, is we don't have a lot of those, and I'm seeing that there aren't a lot of those out on the market. So I'm searching out to bring in maybe 4 or 5. So that's one region that I'm going to bulk up a little bit this year, and I don't know if it'll work or not. It's not manufacturing. People aren't saying I need 22,000 bolts, next month. It's pretty much hand to mouth. the sales reps go out and try and get placements. So I don't know if I'm answering everything correctly because I got Babylon.
This is perfect. I'm curious. You mentioned you kind of have two different sort of methods. You talk about you have a story to sell, whether it's the brand story. You also have the actual wine itself. When you're tasting, and you mentioned tasting, but can I sell this? What is it you're tasting for? I mean, you obviously have tasted a lot of wines in your life. What is it you're tasting for? What determines if you think you can sell it or not?
Well, I kind of simplify it down to balance. We don't really have cocktail wines in our portfolio. We kind of go back to the food and wine, to where we need a wine that has some acidity that'll go with food. We need a wine that's not going to be over oaky, overpowered. So really just a balanced wine, and that's it's perspective, I guess. But tasting through a lot of wines, and my palate is geared towards wines that are maybe a little lower alcohol, a little softer, a little subtler, which is great because that's kind of coming back now. The 17%, 16%, wines that are cocktail wines, juicy, kind of monolithic. We don't really search those out. And a sense of place. So all the buzzwords that are being used, sense of place and terroir and things like that. Yeah, definitely that comes into play, and also balance, and then also price. The 2008, everybody was selling lots of Chateauneuf Pops and Sassicaia, and I was selling Gaia, and I was selling, these really expensive wines. And then 2008 hit, and we all had to retool, had to re-gear. And I think that was really good because we discovered a lot of great wines that were value priced. And everybody kind of discovered those. And so that kind of set it's still what is kind of the standard now in, Eugene and Portland and things in those shops is you can find, under $25, just really amazing wines. And that came about from economic hardship in the country. So that was good. And, we still are selling, $500 and $600 bottles of champagne. But we're selling much more Cremant still because people discovered the value. So, yeah. So, yeah, I guess, just in a nutshell, what I look for, and like I said, I kind of simplify everything, but it's just balance. I don't want I don't want the oak to be too prevalent, and maybe that oak's going to integrate later on, but I need to sell it now. People aren't selling wine like they used to. They want a little more, a little more immediacy. So.
And on the same track, what do you look for in a story, and what do you find sells well in terms of the brand story? What are people looking for when they're buying from you as you're selling their story?
Oh, they're looking for history, respect for the land, taking it back to just Oregon there were a lot of people that were small and started out and were experimenting and doing, making a lot of mistakes and making a lot of inroads and things like that. And then there seemed to be Domaine Drouin come in and kind of some of these bigger players in the world scene invest money into Oregon and kind of come in and do these kind of larger, production, doing it amazingly well. But doing, there were these bigger wineries that were put in. And right now what you're seeing is this little cottage industry of someone that worked at Domaine Serene or Domaine Drouin that after work is making wine, a little gariste, and they're making wine, and now they're kind of coming about, and now they're up to 2,000 cases, and so they're off on their own, and so there's a lot of that going on right now, and it's really interesting, a lot of different interesting varietals stuff. So that's a kind of story that I think is great. So with our wineries from, domestically and internationally, that's the kind of stories I like to tell. I like to, I was back at a winery in northeastern Italy, and the father was telling me that he was 5 during World War II, and he was in charge of hiding the pigs from the Nazis. Things like that, I just kind of, and that's a short little bit of stories like that I hear all the time, all over Europe. And so when you get to sit down with the mom and the dad and the son and their kids, you've got 3 generations, and that winery started in 1625. To me, that's I'll pour the wine and say they're kind of new at this, since 1625, and I'll just keep talking. They're like, wait a minute. So, and then, domestically, the same thing. It's just, I like people that are kind of doing it right. People that are taking care of their employees and taking care of the land and are making wine, and you have to sell it. We have to pay you have to sell it. That's where we come in. We're the distributor. People are like, oh, I have to pay you to do this now, but there's value in what we do. So yeah, that's just the kind of stories that I like to hear and to tell, and it legitimizes when you've been to the properties, even locally. I was doing a French tasting when I was working for this French importer, and they were like, "Oh, have you been there?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." The whole demeanor changes. Like they're like, "Oh, you read it in a book, and I've been there and you haven't," and you're like, "Oh, yeah, I could feel that. That hurt," And so I just still think that's the best way, is just to find a way to go to these places, visit them, talk to the people. Because that's your best education. You can get the tech sheet off the internet. You can't get that story and passion. I was standing in a vineyard in Ribeiro, Spain, and it's terraced, and they're really wide terraced, and there's sheep standing in between the grapevine rows, and the owner of the winery said, this part of the vineyard here, this was built BC. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah. And so I have this great picture of me standing there, and and I use visual aid all the time when I'm out saying, this is where this came from, and check this out, this is BC. And they're like, what? And the wine's great. On top, the wine has to be good too. But, things like that, and there's just a short little story, and who wants to read a tech sheet after that? Not me, but some people do. So, just those kind of stories.
You mentioned the kind of the cottage industry in Oregon, the small, very, very small producers. Is there, for your business, is there a minimum? Do people have to make a certain amount of wine before you'll consider them? What's the kind of minimum barrier to entry before they can be distributed?
No, I mean, there's a lot of great wine out there. There's a lot of people that can make 100,000 cases very well, and there's people that make 500 cases very well, and the opposite. So to me, it's at this point with, say, if I'm going to bring out an Oregon wine, it's very hard to build a brand right now. I mean, pretty much because people aren't tasting, they aren't really bringing in a lot of new things. So it's got to have some traction as far as in the market right now. And that's changed from before, is where we consider ourselves brand builders, but right now we have we have some Oregon brands that are working, and it's just not fair to bring on a winery and say, we're going to build your brand, because of COVID. It's just very difficult to do that. And I just think the wineries in Oregon have done a fantastic. Our wine sales, Oregon wine sales, are down because the Oregon wineries have done such a great job of directly dealing with this, what's going on with doing specials and with their wine clubs and things like that. They've just done a great job, and I would encourage anybody to go straight to the winery and give them the money straight away. You know, there's also stores that won't buy from a winery. They only buy through a distributor, so you know they still need us. But you know, everything's kind of on a little bit of a pause for us and local wineries. But I wouldn't say there's no minimum, no maximum. It just, you know, it has to be a need. It doesn't do us any good to bring on a brand that we can't sell. And that's happened. We've made many mistakes. But if you're not making mistakes, then you're not moving forward, actually. So,
Sure.
yeah.
So you mentioned the name of the company, Vertical Wine and Beer. Obviously, wine is not all you do. You obviously have beers and ciders. Tell me.
We do beers and ciders. So we sell in certain markets. Our local Heater Allen and Golden Valley are our two local beers. And then we do some imports from Slovenia, we don't anymore, but we did sell beers from Israel. We sell, what are our other beers? Right now we're looking at a Portuguese beer. Anything that's a little different that, you know, A, it's got to be good, and B, the need for it, you know, you've got a place like you know, John's or, you know, these beer meccas. You say, I've got this, and this, and they go, okay, you know, because they want to carry from all over. Cider, we carry Slake, Carlton Cider Works, and then we carry a Pommeau from France. So we're kind of actually looking for ciders, and we're actually looking for a mead. We used to carry a mead and did pretty well with it. So kind of going back to specialty items that we do to be unique in the marketplace. So
you have worked with in your career a lot of different regions, and of course now you're working with a lot of different regions in wine and beyond. How do you go about staying up to date with all the things you need to know and all the tastes, all the things you have to taste from all these different places? How do you kind of keep it in your head? How do you keep tabs on all the different comings and goings in all these different regions?
I read a lot, and then suppliers keep me up to date. As far as, you know, trends go, sometimes I skip those. Because in the beginning of our company, we did do a lot of those, and it's good for a little while, and then, you know, it's a trend; it goes away, and so that's why, kind of doing the long haul, the European model of there's a lot of varietals that people are discovering. There's a lot of hot, you know, orange wines and natural wines, and you know what that means. And most of our wineries are using native yeast, are what I consider organic or biodynamic. We have Demeter certified wineries, things like that. We don't list them. We don't push that as far as I've seen some other companies do, because it's our job to show the wines to our customers and then to tell them that, and to tell that story and how it's done, instead of like just a catalog where there's a green leaf or whatever people would do. Same with points, things like that. We don't list those. If someone wants to know, we tell them. But we just feel like that's more of an organic way to present. You know, natural wines are just kind of the way they used to do it. So if you can take that and all the technology we have today, and making a great wine, I'm all for it. But I've tasted a lot of not so great ones. And yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, that's a trend, we're not doing. We're just sticking with our, with our formula of they use native yeast. This is Demeter certified. This is an organic. This is a natural wine, but it's clean. It's clean. That's my not so passionate way of putting it. Anyway.
You mentioned points. That's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, that's always been a huge thing in the sale of wines, but we keep hearing that that's less prevalent now than it used to be. Is it still something you're selling on or finding people are interested in, or has that started to wane a little bit when you're out selling brands?
Well, there are definitely people that want to hear about the points and want to buy on the points. It is less prevalent than it used to be. With someone sitting down tasting 600 wines, in my opinion, the wines that are appealing to me with some acidity and not so, what I'd say, smash mouth, not everything so upfront and in your face. Those wines aren't going to score very well because they're going to really stick out as acidic, in a lineup of wines that are kind of juicy and nice and plush and nothing against those. It just, it's just not really my style. But the wines that I generally, so there's certain reviewers that I respect and others that I don't. I think it's still useful because there's you're not born drinking wine. I mean, unless you're Italian. But it's a process. I started drinking wine. It was sweet wines and inexpensive wines and syrupy wines, and you kind of progress, and your palate is what matters. So I don't know if you want some guy in New York telling you, or California or Oregon or wherever, telling you that this wine is fantastic and you should drink it and you should like it. You should like it. You should try it and you should like it. So, and as long as you're drinking wine, I don't care what it is. There's some great wines that are in bag-in-a-box now, and some people are like, oh, bag-in-a-box, I'll never drink that. It's like, okay, don't. And there's wines that have, Stelvins, screw caps on them that are fantastic. And Australia's been using them for a long time, and they're finding that it's aging. There's a little micro-oxidation going on, that they're doing well. But there are people that won't drink wine that has a screw cap on it, and...
Or out of a can.
Yeah, I mean, to me, wine should be fun, and that just takes it to where it's not fun. You don't want to go to I don't want to go to fine dining every night, and I don't want to go to a taqueria every night either. I like to do different things. So I don't limit myself to white wine or to red wine or to sparkling wine or to sweet wine or dry wine. It's balance. It's good. So points, they do matter, but not to me.
Very succinct. I like that.
Yeah.
What other changes have you seen in the selling of wine? What you mentioned trends, obviously, but kind of as the through line, what is different about selling wine now to you? What's different about the process? What's different about the buyers, the sellers? Or has it stayed kind of the same throughout your career?
No, I'd say there are a lot of buyers now that are are not passionate, and I think that's more of the corporate scenario. There's a lot of, I'd say, wine stewards that maybe want to be passionate and want to, be that person that recommends that wine to that customer, that it really turns them on to a certain thing and gets that trust going to where they're going to ask them all the time about that wine. But maybe they're under a lot of stress with paperwork and dealing with employees, and there's just a lot of outside sources now on everybody, to where the wine steward used to be like, that's your job, is to bring in that varietal that no one's heard of and get it in their hands and get them to like that, and that's how you get a customer, is you get them to trust you and get them coming back and saying, what do you recommend? You see it all the time, stewards recommendations. I like that, because that they've tasted that wine and they're really recommending that, and it has nothing to do with what they've gotten from the distributor or importer or anything like that. It has to do with them really interested, or they just went to Europe and sourced these wines and found them and brought them back, and they can tell that story to their. I've just seen that change a lot. 2008 as well, there were a lot of certified sommeliers, and then all of a sudden the waiter, nothing against the wait staff, but they had a passion for wine, and they would do it for free because they got to try all the wines with the reps and pick the wine list, and it was it's very, very proud of it, but they weren't as maybe educated on the floor, which they are now, but I just saw that kind of part of the business dip down, and then it was coming back, and now it's going to be tough again, because what do you cut at your restaurant? That guy that's getting a piece of your wine sales and that's picking them out and is really good, or that that staff member that's passionate about it but is going to do it for free. So.
Well, on that note, we've talked about COVID quite a bit today, and obviously a huge impact on the industry in general. Tell me about it from your perspective. You mentioned sort of having to kind of pivot on the fly because of how much of your wine was being sold to restaurants.
Yeah.
So tell me how you've managed, how your company has managed, what are the changes you've made, and what you see in the future as we start coming out of the pandemic with restaurants and with the wine distribution.
Well, I mean, if I told you all the secrets about what's going to happen after COVID, I'm not going to be as rich as I'm going to be after that. No, I have no idea, because things keep changing. And that's the consistent thing, is that things keep changing. We've got some restaurants that are, their menus either geared or they've retooled it to do the to-go, and they do outside and kind of shrunk stuff down, and they are doing a pretty good job of wine to go, and now they have the cocktails to go. Any little thing helps. And then there's other restaurants that it just didn't work. They tried it, or for them to do outdoor seating, they can only do so many tables, and they'll take in $700, and it costs them $2,000 to operate. So it's easier for them to kind of shut down. But as far as our company goes, we had some, January, February, we're re-upping on our supplies, on our stock, on our inventory. So we had one restaurant group, local, Portland, but they had 3 restaurants, and that buyer, it had taken me 5 years, and finally was, in with the buyer and doing well, and really liked our products. And So we brought in a sparkling Nebbiolo. Well, I'm ordering a couple pallets of it because he's pouring it by the glass at 3 restaurants. They're going through a lot. Stopped. So times that by 40% of our business, we had a lot of inventory of things that weren't really geared towards the retail. So we had to work very hard, the sales reps worked very hard to build that into our retail set, and it took a long time to get through that inventory. And then you're talking to the winery, in Italy and saying, yeah, it was a great order in February, but that's probably going to be it this year. And literally, we just reordered that wine just 2 days ago. So, you times that by, we have 700 and some SKUs, not all restaurant stuff, but we did have quite a few wines like that to where we had major inventory. So just working with the suppliers, and that's where it comes down to relationships. That the importance of that, to where you're working with suppliers, and they're being very supportive because we've been with them since the beginning. And I was with a lot of the suppliers that we have in our portfolio. With the 2 other companies I worked for, they followed me, or I said, hey, I'm starting my own, and they go, oh, we're going with you. So our sales reps and our delivery people, I told everybody, if you don't feel comfortable out working in the marketplace, then don't. You have that option, and we'll hire you right back when things get better. But go on unemployment if you need to, if you don't feel safe. And everybody stayed working. Every single person did, and so that to me was very, felt really good. So everybody kept working, and my expectations went down because, whereas before someone would be selling X amount a month, or we'd have goals for them for X amount a month. I don't have those anymore. So there's nine of us out selling, and so we just all need to do the best we can. Yeah.
Are there changes you've made during the pandemic that you anticipate keeping, or the things you've done that to kind of cope with it, that you think will be kind of part of the permanent model for your business, or are you kind of planning to go back to where you were as soon as you can?
Well, when the restaurants are opened back up again, it's going to be a brand new game. We're going to have to rebuild that whole portion of our customer base, because a lot of them aren't going to be around. A lot of them have different buyers now, so it's a new relationship. What we're trying to do now is to stay in their radar if they're doing food to go, if they're doing the outdoor seating, whatever. It's just being there for them in terms of sending people there, supporting them, buying a gift certificate once in a while. Hopefully they're buying a little bit of wine. A lot of them are trying. But it's kind of I don't know, you don't want to be like this wine vulture kind of, it's, we need to stay in business, they need to stay in business, and it's just kind of that, that velvet touch of being there, but also like, hey, we need to sell. I mean, the reality is we all need to bring in some income. So, but just trying to be there to do what we can. On whatever small level, our sales reps all have a food budget, and I haven't been getting any receipts lately. And I said, go out and you spend that at your accounts. Go buy food to go. You got to eat. I'm paying for it. So, And it's not a huge budget, but they do have one, and we've kept that throughout as well. And saying just go buy a gift card if they're not open, you know. So I just say I don't know what it's going to look like. I do know with our relationships and with our sales reps being very experienced and in the industry for quite a while, that we'll be okay. You know, we'll do all right. I'm kind of excited, obviously, for this to be over and to get back to it. And you know, I've always traveled around the state and worked with my sales reps and said I'm going to be in the market. I'm going to pour some wines because I like to know all our customers. I don't know all of them, but I'd like to know as many as I can, and stay in contact and have them feel like that they can get a hold of, you know, Tony or myself at any time. There's not a lot of owners that do that. My parents taught me that. You know, it's more important than ever for you to show your face. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that we do is a little different. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not.
Suppose that depends on the face, I guess.
That's right. It depends on the face for that day.
So what do you kind of see as you look ahead then for the future for yourself and for Vertical? What are your kind of sort of benchmarks coming up next 5-10 years? What are you hoping for? What are you anticipating?
Well, we would like to be, you know, that mid-level distributor and importer that can still be flexible and go with changes and roll with changes, not be rigid. You know, the portfolio probably won't grow exponentially because, you know, you go from nothing to, you know, 700 and some SKUs, and you know, there's people that drop out and drop in. So I think it's kind of a good level. So we're not going to expand a lot. You know, there's I'll probably fall into a couple more trends. It's just, you know, it's just what I do sometimes. but yeah, I really don't know because of this year. You know, we kind of had a plan to be at a certain income level, to where at that income level we make some money, can retire, you know, at some point. You know, my daughter's in college, my son's finishing up high school and works with us at the warehouse, and he's kind of interested, but maybe not. You know, I don't know. Yeah, a couple more sales reps and a little more wine, but hopefully a little more income than this year. But yeah.
You talked earlier about the idea that Europe is now interested in importing Oregon wine. I'm curious, when you started with the industry, what were kind of your initial impressions of Oregon wine? What did you think of the industry at the time, and what are the biggest changes you've seen? And did you ever anticipate in your career seeing something like that, where Oregon wine was at a point where foreign countries were interested in importing it?
Well, when I started in the industry, like I said, I really wasn't into wine that much until maybe a couple of years afterwards. So I have seen the Oregon wines just improve so much. You know, look at the Chardonnay, not only the Pinot Noir, but look at what they've done with the Chardonnay, and with other varietals, people are doing Gruner Veltliner, you know, things like that. But if we're just going to stick to the Pinot Noir and the Chardonnay, I would say the International Pinot Noir celebration has really helped garner some interest in the world. No, I don't know. I remember telling people there's 300 wineries in the Oregon wine industry. I remember talking to Jesse Lang, saying, "Who's putting in that vineyard over there?" And it's right next to their property. He's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Really?" So it kind of, at that point, and that was about 300 vineyards, 300 wineries at that time. I've been doing a lot of work down in Southern Oregon, and it's a whole nother world down there, and they're making great strides as well. Probably 15 years ago, I wouldn't really have said that I enjoyed the wines from down there, and now I really do. Like there's just mass improvement all over with farming, is where it starts. Farming, and then people making clean wines, mostly great wines. But my palate's not the the end all be all palate, and I don't ever think that. I have my preferences, and other people do as well, and I respect that. So,
what about, as you look ahead for the future of the Oregon industry, what do you see down the line? What are the trends you're seeing, maybe, or do you see in the size, the growth continuing, or what kind of is your crystal ball for the future of Oregon wine?
I'll take the zero on that one. I really don't know. I mean, I'm amazed every year at how many places are going in and people are investing, and I'm really excited about what the wineries have done during this COVID to keep their doors open. Everybody's had to get creative on every level of our industry, and for the most part, people have. I mean, there's a few people that, like they just have their way and they're not going to change, and others have just really done some great things, and I just see a lot of young people that are very passionate about wine and food again, and so I'm very hopeful for the Oregon wine industry. The older generation of, you spoke about the points and things like that, I guess it would be more luxury, ego-driven, that there are those, but I feel that there's a lot more cottage, a lot more people that are passionate about food and wine more than they are about showing off to their friends. So I'm hopeful for that. I'm really glad that the farming practices have gone to as organic as people can get, and that they've discovered that on their property, that the east side, that there's no wind movement and there's shade and there's disease pressure, and that varietal doesn't work there, but this one does. That they've had enough time to kind of discover that about their own properties, which on one piece of property there's all sorts of different microclimates as well, and so I think that's really helped with the quality as well as the farming. A lot of these great farmers out there. Yeah.
What if someone were to come to you and say they wanted to join the Oregon wine industry in some capacity? What would your words of wisdom to them be?
Well, what I've said to people, because people do ask me that, is I'm like, well, what do you want to do? When you have the Linfield students come talk to me, I'm like, well, what do you want to do in the industry? And sometimes it comes down to financial with people, and sometimes it comes down to, as I see, I'm like, go work harvest, go, do the production, work in the tasting rooms, do every part of the business you can. So you're a well-rounded individual, apprenticed on your own if you have to. If you can't go through this program here at Linfield, apprentice wherever you can. My path was not. My education was basically head first, and going, visiting the properties, learning about it firsthand. I tell people, that are in the industry, you need to go to Europe. That's why this industry is here. You need to go just check it out. Learn about the past, and you're the future. And they're like, well, I can't. I'm like, you need to. Find a way. Find a way. I've only paid for a couple trips myself. I couldn't do this on my own. My suppliers pay for me to go. That's how they've invested in me, and I in turn bring back that passion and sell their products. So it's very symbiotic as well. But I found a way to go. And there's always a reason. There's always something to say, well, I can't because I have to do this. I can't do that. It's a sacrifice. Totally worth it. Completely worth it. I mean, even if you're like, one trip was 17 days in France, 3 to 4 wineries a day. I called it France by night. It was a death march. But it was worth it. You come back and people are like, oh, you were just in France. You're like, oh, wow, yeah, I was. Only ended up in the hospital once. But that's the other thing. When you're on these trips, spit the wine out. Don't eat everything and don't drink everything. Because your body is not used to it and the time change. And then there's been some very civilized trips as well, to where it's one winery and you have free days and you get to, walk around Verona and just it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And the people that you meet on those trips are, I have people all across the world and all across the United States that are in the business that we're friends. We went on a trip. We spent a week together, and we've helped each other out ever since. So there's something that I guess it'd be like a camp or something. When you meet that special person that you connect with, and you're in a situation where oh, I guess we're roommates. I don't know you, but we're roommates. So. Yeah, that's a pretty cool part of it. Definitely. I met a lot of great, just amazing people. Like, just they've taught me so much.
All right, that's all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't cover here that we should have
I'll
covered?
probably think about it later. Yeah. No, I think I babbled on enough, I think. So.
The perfect amount of babbling.
Yes,
right
great. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time, appreciate the stories and the advice, and it's such an interesting part of the industry for us that it's nice to have some mysteries unlocked, I think, from the distribution side. So thank you. We really appreciate it, and
Great.
we'll let you off the hook.
Okay, cool.